Have you ever looked someone in the eye, someone you raised, sacrificed everything for, and realized they were ashamed of you? I have. It happened on a crisp November evening, standing outside my sister's apartment, holding a pie I baked with our mom's old recipe, dressed in my best slacks and blouse, heart open, ready to be part of her world. She barely looked at me before whispering, "Please, just don't mention what you do tonight." Let me back up. I'm Rachel. I'm 36, and I run a thriving HVAC company in Ohio. I built it from the ground up, starting as an apprentice tech and working my way into contracts that now keep hospitals, schools, and skyscrapers functioning. But none of that mattered to Tiffany, my sister. I raised her after our parents died in a car crash 5 years ago. I was 31. She was just 14. Still in high school, still full of dreams. The insurance money helped, but not enough to cover college. Not enough to give her the life our parents would have wanted. So I worked more, took every call, skipped every vacation, saved every dime. I funded everything from her private high school to the elite, Westmore University with its $56,000 a year tuition. She cried when she opened her acceptance letter. "You're really going to pay for all of it?" she asked, her voice cracking. "Of course," I said. "Mom and Dad would have wanted this for you." For a while it felt worth it. She called often. She was happy. Studying international business, making new friends. Dreaming big, then Bradford came along, Bradford Prescott. A name that sounded like it came with a trust fund and a yacht. His family had homes in the Hamptons, Aspen, and God knows where else. Tiffany was smitten by him, by the wealth, by the idea of finally belonging somewhere elite. That's when things shifted. She started referring to our dad as a small business owner, instead of what he really was, a plumber. She called our holidays low-key. She even posted Instagram captions like, "So grateful for real family, real class." I still funded her life, but I no longer fit into it. Then came the dinner. A pre-Thanksgiving party at her apartment, for Bradford and his friends. I was invited. "Just keep it low-key," she said. "Don't talk too much about your work." It stung, but I ignored it. I told myself she was young. Nervous, caught between two worlds. I showed up early, helped her cook. Brought all the groceries. Even offered to make Mom's cranberry sauce, the one thing that had always made our table feel like home. "I already bought some from the gourmet market," she said flatly. "But thanks." I should have known then. The night unfolded like a slow car crash. Her guests talked about spring breaks in Bali, board seats, internships handed down from uncles. I felt like a tourist in their world. Still, I kept quiet, until someone asked what I did. Before I could answer, Tiffany jumped in. "She's just helping out for the weekend." Not, "She's my sister." Not, "She owns a company that employs 15 people." Just helping out. Later, when I explained my job calmly, professionally, one of the guys smirked and said, "So, like, when the AC breaks, you're the one who crawls into the attic?" "Among other things," I said. "We just fixed a system at the local hospital's operating room. Surgeons can't work if the temperature's off." Amanda, one of the girlfriends, actually looked impressed. "That sounds important," but Tiffany cut her off. "Bradford, tell them about your dad's new yacht." And just like that, the conversation pivoted back to things that sparkled. I tried to stay. I really did. But over dessert, when someone asked about Thanksgiving traditions, Tiffany waved me off. "Oh, nothing special. Just boring old stuff." I spoke up just a little. "Actually, our parents, no one wants to hear that old-fashioned stuff," she snapped. "Rachel, please." It was the word please that did it. The quiet desperation in her eyes. Like she was begging me not to ruin her perfect little illusion. In the kitchen, I pulled her aside. "Why are you ashamed of where we come from?" I whispered. "I'm not," she said, not meeting my eyes. I'm trying to fit in. You wouldn't understand." I backed away. "Fine, I won't talk about my work, or that I pay for your tuition. I'll keep your secrets." We served the rest of the meal in silence. And then came the moment I'll never forget. Someone made another crack about the help, and instead of defending me, Tiffany laughed. Laughed. Like I was a punchline. I was done. I stood, placed my napkin gently on the table, and said, "I apologize for embarrassing you." with my honest work. Then I left, no dramatic exit. Just soft steps, quiet tears, and the realization that I didn't recognize the person I had raised anymore. And I hadn't even made the hardest decision yet. But it was coming, and it would change everything. When I got home that night, I didn't go straight to bed. I sat on the couch in silence, coat still on, keys clenched in my hand like I was bracing for impact. The only light came from the street lamp outside my window. It threw long shadows across the floor, and everything felt still except my chest tight, burning. I didn't cry at first. I just sat there, replaying Tiffany's voice in my head. "You're just an AC tech," she said it like it was nothing. Like the years I spent building my company from the ground up were a punchline, like the sacrifices didn't matter. I kept hearing it over and over, that word just cutting deeper every time. I pulled out my phone and dialed. Heather answered on the second ring. "Rachel, I need you," I said, my voice cracking. Something happened with Tiffany. She was at my door 20 minutes later with a bottle of wine and arms that didn't ask questions. I told her everything, every word, every look. The heat in my voice, the cold in Tiffany's. I didn't leave anything out. "She said that to you?" Heather asked, wide-eyed. "After everything you've done for her?" I nodded. She didn't even say sorry. She just wanted me gone. That's not just ungrateful, Rachel. That's cruel. I didn't say anything for a long time. The wine sat untouched between us. "I keep wondering if I did something to provoke her," I whispered. "Maybe I embarrassed her somehow. Maybe I should have changed clothes faster or kept quiet." Heather leaned forward, her voice sharp. "Stop that. You were invited. You helped cook. You were polite. You didn't do anything wrong." But it didn't feel that way. I kept thinking about how many weekends I'd skip trips, how many nights I stayed late at job sites just to send Tiffany her monthly allowance. I thought about the rent payments, the tuition checks, the books, the clothes, the groceries. Everything I gave her just so she could chase her dreams. And she couldn't even say I was her sister. "I looked it up once," I said suddenly. "The tuition at Westmore? 56 grand a year. I pay that. On top of her housing, her food, everything." "Have you ever totaled it all?" Heather asked softly. I hadn't, not really. I opened my laptop right there on the coffee table and pulled up my financial software. Heather sat beside me as I clicked through statement after statement. Tuition payments, apartment deposits, credit card bills. For over an hour we combed through everything. When I hit the final number, I just stared. $123,000, I said quietly, in a year and a half. Heather let out a low whistle. "And she treats you like a dirty secret." I sat back, exhausted. "She's ashamed of me," I said. "But she's not ashamed to spend my money. The money I make from being just an AC tech." Heather didn't say anything. She didn't need to. The next morning, Tiffany still hadn't called. No text. No apology. No explanation. But I did get a text. "You totally overreacted. You embarrassed me in front of Bradford. Why couldn't you just play along for one night? That was it. No, I'm sorry. No. Are you okay?" Just blame, pure and cold. I showed the message to Heather, who nearly dropped her coffee. "She still doesn't get it." "No," I said, my voice flat. "She really doesn't." 3 days passed. Silence. My phone stayed cold. The ache in my chest didn't. I went to work. I ran meetings. I approved invoices. I smiled at clients. But inside, I was unraveling. Then Trevor came over. He knew something was off the second he walked through the door. "You've been quiet all week. What's going on?" I told him everything, from the dinner party to the text to the $123,000 spreadsheet. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he looked me straight in the eye and asked, "What are you going to do?" "I don't know," I admitted. Part of me wants to call her and demand an apology. Another part of me never wants to speak to her again. "What about her tuition?" he asked. "Isn't the next semester due soon?" 3 weeks, I said. Trevor nodded slowly. "I know you promised your parents you'd take care of her. But maybe it's time to ask if funding this lifestyle, this attitude, is really helping her, or just enabling it." I didn't sleep that night. I kept staring at the ceiling, hearing Trevor's words on repeat. Helping or enabling. I thought about the promises I'd made to my parents. The tears in Tiffany's eyes when I told her she could go to any school she wanted. The thank you notes she never wrote. The dinners she never came home for. The sister she'd outgrown and hidden away. Was I helping her, or was I just buying her love? The next afternoon, my email dinged. Subject: tuition due reminder, Westmore University amount due. $28,000 due date. 3 weeks from today. I stared at the screen and made my decision. It wasn't rage. It wasn't revenge. It was clarity. I opened my banking app and pulled up the college fund account I'd set aside for Tiffany. $84,000 sat in it, enough for 3 more semesters. I stared at that number for a long moment. Then I transferred it back into my business account. A confirmation window popped up. Are you sure you want to proceed with this transfer? I took a deep breath and clicked yes. It was done. For the first time since I became Tiffany's guardian, she was going to have to stand on her own. No warning, no speech. Just the silence she'd have to break herself. And when she did, I'd be ready, not as her wallet, but as her sister. The call came exactly a week later. I was in the office, half listening to a contractor walk me through a rooftop unit replacement, when Jessica buzzed me on the intercom. Your sister's on line 2, she said carefully. She sounds upset. I knew this moment was coming. I just didn't expect the knot in my stomach to be this tight. I picked up the phone. Hello? What the hell, Rachel? Her voice shot through the receiver like a slap. I just got an email from the financial office. They said my tuition hasn't been paid and I'm going to be dropped from my classes in 3 days. What's going on? I stayed calm. I had practiced this. I decided not to pay your tuition this semester. Silence. Just for a second, and then she exploded again. You what? You can't do that. You've always paid. What am I supposed to do now? You have options, I said quietly. Financial aid, student loans, a job, or a transfer to a more affordable school. Are you serious right now? This is my education. My future. You can't just pull the rug out from under me. I've supported you for 1.5 years, I reminded her. That's more than most students get. But I can't keep paying for someone who treats me like I'm beneath them. She was quiet for a beat. Then, incredulous, is this about what I said at the dinner party? It's not just that, I said. It's years of comments. Dismissals. Disrespect. That night was just the moment I realized I couldn't ignore it anymore. I didn't mean it like that, she muttered. You told me I didn't belong in your world. You said I was embarrassing you, in front of your friends. I was stressed, she snapped. I was trying to impress people. And that made it okay to humiliate me? I said I was sorry if I hurt your feelings. You didn't to say you were sorry. You blamed me for reacting. She went quiet again. Then, you're being petty, vindictive. No, I said firmly. I'm setting a boundary. And for the first time in your life, you're dealing with a consequence. There was a long pause. Fine, she said bitterly. I'll ask Bradford. Maybe his parents can help until you come to your senses. And she hung up. The line went dead in my hand. I sat there, staring out the window of my office, the city humming just beyond the glass. I didn't feel triumphant or proud, just tired and oddly calm. 2 days later, I opened my front door and nearly dropped my coffee. Tiffany was standing there. Her eyes were red, puffy. Her normally perfect hair was pulled into a messy ponytail. The scarf she wore still had the price tag hanging off the edge. She looked human, smaller. Bradford broke up with me, she said flatly, stepping past me into the house. I closed the door behind her. I'm sorry to hear that, I said. She whirled around. Are you? Because it sure seems like you're enjoying watching my life fall apart. That's not true, I said calmly. What happened? What do you think happened? She snapped. I told him my tuition wasn't covered anymore, that I might need help. Suddenly, he wasn't ready for a serious relationship. He said we should take a break. She laughed bitterly. His mom offered me a waitress job at their country club. I didn't say anything. I bet you're thrilled. No, I'm not. I'm sorry it ended that way. I really am. She paced the room like a storm cloud with heels. I gave up everything for him, she said. I tried to become what he wanted. I thought if I looked the part, acted the part, I'd finally be accepted somewhere. I crossed my arms. And what about who you really are? She stopped. What do you mean? You're trying to belong in someone else's life, I said. But you haven't figured out how to live your own. Oh, please, she scoffed. Don't pretend you're above all this. You cut me off without warning. I gave you more warning than you gave me at that dinner. She sat down hard on the couch, her shoulders sagging. So what now? I drop out of school? Transfer to community college? What exactly do you want from me? I sat across from her. I want you to grow up, she flinched. I let the silence stretch. I want you to stop measuring people by how expensive their clothes are, or where they vacation, or how clean their job title sounds. She looked at her hands. And I want you to realize that someone can love you deeply and still draw the line when they read being hurt. Another long pause. Zoe and Madison think I should apologize, she said suddenly. They told me what I said to you was way out of line. And what do you think? She looked away. I think I need my tuition paid. The air between us froze. Tiffany, I said softly, an apology isn't currency. She didn't respond. What do you want from me? She finally whispered. What would fix this? I shook my head. It's not about fixing it. It's about changing it. We can't go back to how things were. That dynamic me paying for everything while you treat me like an inconvenience is over. Her face fell. So, you're just cutting me off? I'm not abandoning you, I said. But I am done paying for a version of you that doesn't respect who I am. She stood, eyes glossy, breathing uneven. So that's it, she said. After everything.
No, I
said quietly. This is the beginning. But only if you want it to be. She left without another word. In the days that followed, the calls came. Margaret and William, our parents' old friends. Tiffany says you've left her destitute, Margaret scolded. She might have to drop out of school. She might have to grow up, I replied. William wasn't subtle. Using money to teach her a lesson? That's not right. She's 19, I said. Old enough to know right from wrong. Old enough to know gratitude from entitlement. But the worst call came from Westmore itself, her academic advisor. She's applied for emergency grants, the woman said. She's also started working at the campus library. I just thought you should know. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Thank you, I said at last. Really, thank you for telling me. I hung up the phone and just sat there. For the first time in weeks, I felt something like peace. Not because Tiffany was struggling, but because maybe just maybe she was starting to learn. 2 weeks went by with barely a word. The silence between us had shape thick, jagged, the kind you tiptoe around. I kept expecting another explosive text or a dramatic call, but nothing came, just quiet. Until one Tuesday evening my phone buzzed. It was a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't pick up. Hello? It's me, Tiffany said quietly. Her voice wasn't sharp or defensive. It was small, careful. I got a job at the library, she added. A pause hung between us. It only pays minimum wage, but it's something. I leaned back in my chair, surprised by how steady my heart felt. That's a good step, I said. I'm proud of you. Don't say that yet, she muttered. I've also applied for every scholarship and grant I could find. How are your classes going? They're fine. I'm keeping up. She hesitated, then continued. I moved out of the apartment. I couldn't afford the rent anymore. I'm in a dorm now, sharing a room with Zoe. I blinked. The same Zoe from the dinner party? Yeah, she said. She's actually been really decent, so has Madison, surprisingly. They both told me I was awful to you. I let out a slow breath. I didn't know what to say. I was still holding my guard, but somewhere in my chest, something softened. Sounds like you've got some better influences around you now. Maybe, she said. Then quieter, I've just been doing a lot of thinking. About everything. For the first time in a long time, her voice didn't carry entitlement. It carried weight, responsibility. She didn't ask for money. She didn't ask for anything. And that silence, that choice said more than any apology she could have given. After that, the distance between us started shrinking. Slowly, she'd send the occasional text. Got an A on my business ethics paper. Passed my French midterm. Barely. Zoe and I tried making Dad's spaghetti sauce. Total disaster. I responded with small encouragements. Nothing too deep. I wasn't ready for trust. But I was ready for hope. Then one afternoon, Jessica buzzed my office again. "Your sister's here," she said, surprised. "Wants to see you." I looked up from my laptop. "Send her in." Tiffany stepped into my office like it was sacred ground. Her jeans were plain. Her sweater was borrowed from better days. Her hair was tied back simply. No makeup, no attitude. She looked around slowly, the framed contracts on the wall, the awards, the blueprint renderings of mechanical systems, the team photos from job sites. "I've never seen your office before," she said, almost to herself. I nodded. Most people don't think vet companies have offices. She gave a sheepish smile and sat in the chair across from mine. "I wanted to talk to you in person," she said, "and I wanted to see where you actually work." Before I could respond, my office phone rang. A hospital call. "Sorry, give me a second," I said, picking up. I spoke calmly, professionally. There was an issue with the fourth-floor system at Riverdale Corporate Center, a high-priority client. "I'll meet the crew there in 20, I told the manager. "We'll get it sorted." I hung up and turned to Tiffany. "I have to head to a job site." She stood. "Can I come with you?" I blinked. "You wanna come?" I think I need to see it." "For real?" We drove in silence. She watched the city pass through the window like she was seeing it for the first time. Riverdale was a 12-story beast, one of our biggest accounts. The property manager met us looking frazzled. "The whole 5th floor is down," he said. "Lawson Group's threatening to walk if we don't fix it today." "We'll handle it," I said simply. Inside the mechanical room, my crew was already at work. Jessica and Mark nodded at me as I joined them. I introduced Tiffany quickly and got to work diagnosing a failed compressor, reviewing the backup system, organizing parts delivery. For the next hour, I forgot she was even there. I was in my element, coordinating, leading, solving. At one point, I glanced over. Tiffany was just watching, not with disdain, not with boredom, with something like awe. When the system finally kicked back online and cool air flooded the floor, the property manager shook my hand like I'd just saved the building. "This is why we stick with your company, Rachel," he said. "Always reliable, always sharp." Back in the car, Tiffany was quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't demand, just absorbs. "That was impressive," she said finally. "They all listened to you, respected you. Even that property guy treated you like the most important person in the room." I glanced at her. "Because in that moment I never understood what you actually did," she said softly. "I thought HVAC was just fixing broken air conditioners. But it's complicated." "It is," I said. "It's systems, contracts, diagnostics, client management, logistics. And leadership," she added. "That team? They looked at you like you were the brain of the whole operation." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Back at the office, she lingered. "Can we talk a bit more?" she asked. I nodded, and we sat back down in my office. She looked nervous. "I came here today to apologize," she said. "Not because I want anything, but because I finally see it. I see you, and what I said to you that night, it was awful. I know that now." I didn't interrupt. I wanted so badly to impress people who would drop me the second I stopped being useful, she said. "And I treated you like you were the one holding me back. But you were the one holding me up." I felt my throat tighten. She wiped her eyes. "I'm sorry, Rachel, for what I said. For what I thought. For every time I rolled my eyes at your work or tried to make you smaller to fit into someone else's version of success." A long silence stretched between us. "Why did their approval matter so much?" I finally asked. She shook her head. "Because I didn't know who I was. And I thought if I could just get into their world, I'd figure it out. But I was wrong." She smiled, the tiniest, most fragile smile. "Turns out the person I want to be is a little more HVAC." I laughed. So did she. We talked for another hour. For the first time in years, it felt like two sisters talking, not a guardian and her ward, not a bank account and a dependent. She told me about her job at the library, about Zoe and Madison helping her adjust, about how she was learning to manage a tiny budget for the first time. and how humbling it had been. And I could tell it wasn't just talk, she meant it. When she left, she gave me a hug. A real one. I'll keep trying, she whispered. And for the first time, I believed her. 2 weeks after a conversation in my office, Tiffany started working for me, part-time, just a few afternoons a week. Answering phones, filing paperwork, updating scheduling software. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't anything you'd post about online. But she showed up on time, focused, eager. The first day, she brought a notebook labeled Morgan V. Key, Office Systems. She had underlined the title in pencil, twice. I said nothing, but I smiled when she wasn't looking. The crew was cautious at first. Jessica, especially. She didn't say it out loud, but I could see it in her eyes. Is this another phase? I didn't blame her. Jessica had worked twice as hard to prove herself in a male-dominated field. She didn't have much patience for privilege wrapped in self-pity. But by the second week, Tiffany had reorganized our client database, flagged several overlapping service requests, and quietly suggested we automate our follow-ups with a CRM tool she'd learned about in class. She's not just playing assistant, Jessica said one afternoon, leaning against my office doorframe. She's actually useful. She's trying, I said. That's more than I could ask for. Tiffany was different now. Less performative. Less polished. More real. She still had moments, small flashes of her old self. Like when she winced at the word basement, or wrinkled her nose at a greasy takeout lunch. But she caught herself. She corrected. She was learning. One day, while she was scanning old invoices, she paused. How long did it take to get your first real client? She asked. 3 months, I said. And even then, it was just a maintenance contract for a tiny print shop downtown. And now you're managing hospital systems, high-rise towers, government buildings. I shrugged. Brick by brick, she looked down at the file in her hands. I don't know if I've ever built anything in my life. Then now's a good time to start. We didn't talk about tuition. We didn't talk about Westmore. But I knew she was still figuring it out, working shifts at the library, tutoring classmates in Econ 101, living in a dorm half the size of her old bedroom. And she didn't complain, not once. Then, one afternoon, she brought me a folder. Inside were spreadsheets, charts, and a written proposal titled, Morgan HVAC Strategic Growth Through Green Energy Integration. You used my company for a school project? I asked, flipping through it. Yeah, she said. Solar-compatible systems.
Energy audits.
Federal rebates. It's where the market's going. I scanned the numbers. She'd done her research. Her projections were conservative. Her logic was sound. You actually know your stuff, I said, impressed. I want to pitch it at your next team meeting, she said, half joking. You know, if I'm not too embarrassing. I gave her a look, but I was smiling. That weekend, we had a barbecue at my place. Heather came, of course. So did Trevor. Tiffany brought someone new.
His name was Carter.
He studied engineering at the community college and had a quiet way of making eye contact like he meant it. He shook my hand and said, So you're the Rachel Morgan. Tiffany talks about you all the time. Oh, does she? I said, raising an eyebrow at her. He nodded. She says you're one of the smartest people she knows, that you built something from nothing. That's rare. Tiffany blushed. I nearly choked on my lemonade. Later, while they were out on the deck, I caught a snippet of their conversation. Carter was asking about my business model, how we handled emergencies, what our technician-to-client ratio was. She started as a tech herself, Tiffany told him. Like boots in the attic, crawl space work, soldering pipes. Not just paperwork and strategy, she knows it all. The pride in her voice was unmistakable. That night, after everyone left, I sat in my kitchen with the lights dimmed, sipping tea, thinking about how much had changed in 6 months. There were no big announcements, no dramatic apologies. Just small actions, again and again, stacking into something solid. One afternoon, while we were cleaning out the storage room at work, Tiffany found an old framed photo of me 24 in a beat-up jumpsuit covered in grime, crouched next to a broken unit on a rooftop. Was this your first commercial job? She asked. I nodded. Riverside Medical Center, their surgery wing. The unit had failed during a summer heat wave. She looked at the photo for a long time. I get it now, she said. I didn't ask what she meant. I didn't have to. A few days later, she came into my office with a hesitant smile. So, I've been thinking, she said, if I keep working here part-time and take a full course load at the community college, I could finish my associate's degree in a year, then maybe transfer back to a 4-year school if I really want to. That's a smart plan, I said. I wouldn't ask for full tuition again, she added quickly. But if I keep working here, maybe we could figure out a way to split costs? I looked at her, not entitled, not manipulative. Just asking, with dignity. We can revisit that in a few months, I said. Let's see how you do. Her smile was small, but it reached her eyes. I'm proud of you, I said. She looked down, then back up. I'm starting to be proud of me, too. That night, I pulled out the journal I hadn't touched in months. I wrote, she's changing, not perfectly, not overnight. But it's real, she's earning what she used to expect, and maybe, just maybe, we're going to be okay. By the time spring arrived, the tension that used to hover between us like fog had lifted. There were still traces of it, here and there a quick glance, an awkward silence when a memory flared, but for the most part, Tiffany and I had settled into something new. Something healthier. We weren't just sisters anymore. We were two women who had walked through fire and come out the other side scorched but standing. She continued working 3 afternoons a week at the office while taking classes full-time at the community college. She traded preppy campus parties for late-night study groups and early morning bus rides. And you know what? She didn't complain once. One Tuesday afternoon, she came into my office beaming. I got my finals back, she said, waving a piece of paper. Straight A's. I looked up from my desk. Seriously? She nodded, a little breathless. Even accounting, too. I stood and hugged her tight. I'm proud of you, and I meant it. Not just for the grades, but for everything behind them. The self-discipline, the humility, the growth, she grinned. Professor Wilson said my business plan project was the best he's seen this semester. He wants me to present it to next year's class. Green energy expansion? Yep, I used Morgan Veek as the case study. I chuckled. Should I be worried? She smiled. You should be excited. She handed me a printed copy. Her projections were sharper now, her analysis more nuanced. She even included a competitor review and estimated break-even points if we added solar panel integrations. This is actually brilliant, I said, thumbing through it. You think? I think I want you to present it at our next team strategy session. She laughed like I'd just handed her an Oscar. Wait, seriously? Seriously, you earned it. Later that night, we grabbed dinner with Trevor at our favorite little Mexican place. Tiffany told us about a classmate she was tutoring, an older woman going back to school after raising kids. She's taking macroeconomics for the first time, she said, and she's killing it. You've got a knack for teaching, Trevor said. Maybe that's something to explore. Tiffany smiled thoughtfully. Maybe. Over enchiladas, she casually mentioned that Amanda had transferred to State University. Her dad lost a bunch of money in some bad investments. They couldn't afford Westmore anymore. Trevor raised his eyebrows. Tough break. She actually says she's happier, Tiffany added. The pressure at Westmore was intense, and Carter's there too. Carter? I asked. My boyfriend, she said almost shyly. He's the engineering student I brought to the barbecue.
He seemed like a solid guy, Trevor said. He is, she said.
He's different. Cares more about ideas than appearances.
He thinks your business is incredible, Rachel. I raised an eyebrow.
Oh, does he? Yeah. He said VIC specialists who understand systems and client management are exactly what the green energy sector needs. I tried not to show how much that meant to me. Tried to stay cool, but it did. It meant everything. 2 weekends later, they came over again, Tiffany and Carter, for a casual backyard dinner. He helped me set up the grill without being asked, and asked surprisingly smart questions about building codes and equipment specs. At one point, I overheard him ask her, "So your sister built this business from scratch?" And Tiffany said, with pride so thick it practically shimmered, she did it all herself. Started as a tech, learned every tool, every system. Now she manages a staff of 15 and runs some of the most critical contracts in the city. I turned away, pretending to check the burgers, but my throat had tightened. After they left that night, I sat out on the porch for a long time, just watching the stars flicker through the trees. The air smelled like charcoal and lilacs, and for once my mind was quiet. I wasn't bracing for impact. I wasn't waiting for the next disappointment. I was just, okay. And that was new. In May, Tiffany and I visited our parents' graves for the first time in over a year. She brought Lila. I brought silence. We stood side by side for a long time, not saying much, just breathing. Then she turned to me. I think about them all the time, she said. About how they'd want me to act, who they'd want me to be. I do too, I said quietly. She knelt down and laid the flowers at their headstone. Then, without looking up, she added, I used to think being successful meant fitting in with the Bradfords of the world. But now, I think it means standing on your own. Doing work that matters. I looked at her. There was no performance in her voice. No rehearsal, just truth. A few days later, she came into my office after hours. I've been thinking, she said, after I finished my associate's degree. If things are still working out between us, would you ever consider bringing me on full-time, not just as your sister? But officially, I leaned back in my chair. You want to work here long-term, she nodded. I do. I like the work. I like the team. And I believe in what you've built. I think I can help it grow. I considered it for a beat. I'd need to treat you like any other employee, no shortcuts, no special treatment. I wouldn't expect anything less, she said. Then let's keep building. And just like that, something that once felt irreparable had become something new, something real. 6 months ago, she was ashamed of my work. Now she was using it as the foundation for her future. 6 months ago, I was exhausted trying to hold everything together. Now I had a partner, not just in business, but in healing. Thanksgiving came again, and this time we cooked together in my kitchen. No guests, no gourmet substitutions. Just the old family recipes, Mom's cranberry sauce, Dad's roast turkey, that weird green bean dish we always pretended to like. As we sat down at the table with Trevor and Heather, Tiffany raised her glass. To Rachel, she said, her voice steady. Who taught me that real success isn't about status or titles? It's about showing up, standing firm, and loving people enough to tell them the truth even when it hurts. We clinked glasses. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be.